What if the wildest conspiracies of today were predicted 50 years ago? What if movies from the 1970s saw it all coming: corruption, surveillance, and global control? These political thrillers didn't just entertain, they warned us. Watch till the end to uncover the 14 shocking films that saw our future before we did. The Parallax View. In an America scarred by political assassinations and the fall of public trust, the parallax view emerged like a coded warning. Directed by Alan J. Pakula, this psychological thriller stars Warren Beatty as a journalist digging into the murder of a senator, only to stumble into a corporate-run assassination program. What begins as a curious investigation spirals into a conspiracy so deep, so institutional, it echoes today's fears of shadow governments and intelligence agency manipulation. The Parallax Corporation doesn't just kill, it manufactures killers, carefully identifying vulnerable individuals and brainwashing them into becoming political tools. It's chilling to watch now in an era obsessed with mass surveillance, deep state rhetoric, and mental health weaponization. The film eerily mirrors the psychological conditioning and corporate-influenced violence that modern whistleblowers claim exist in real-life black ops. What made the parallax view so prescient was its cold acceptance that the truth might never come out. It predicted a world where conspiracies don't need to stay hidden. They simply become normalized, unprovable, buried in bureaucracy and plausible deniability. Beatty's character never gets to expose the truth. He becomes part of the system he's trying to dismantle. In today's era, where journalists disappear, data manipulation is routine, and lone shooters are suspected to have silent handlers, the parallax view feels less like fiction and more like prophecy. It's not just a film, it's a premonition. 3 Days of the Condor. Imagine discovering that the very agency you work for sees you as expendable. That's the gut-punch premise of 3 Days of the Condor, where Robert Redford plays a CIA researcher who comes back from lunch to find his entire office slaughtered. What follows is a desperate chase through New York as he unravels a covert plot, one not directed at foreign threats, but at controlling global oil. Directed by Sidney Pollack, the film dives into the notion that intelligence agencies aren't just defending democracy. They're shaping the future for corporate gain. Sound familiar? In an era where intelligence leaks suggest collusion between governments and energy conglomerates, this 70s gem was already sounding the alarm. The plot reveals that the CIA had drafted a report speculating how to seize oil-producing nations in case of a global crisis. When Redford's character stumbles upon it, he's marked for death. The haunting twist is that no one, not even the press, may care enough to publish the truth. It's a direct stab at our modern malaise, the public's numbness to injustice. With current headlines about energy politics, coups masked as liberation, and whistleblowers like Snowden and Assange being hunted rather than heard, 3 Days of the Condor isn't just a thriller, it's a cynical crystal ball. It predicted a world where the real threat isn't the enemy at the gate, but the deal behind the door. The Conversation. Long before smartphones and Alexa, there was The Conversation, Francis Ford Coppola's intimate, harrowing tale of a surveillance expert slowly unraveling. Played with quiet brilliance by Gene Hackman, Harry Caul is a man who listens to others' secrets for a living only to find himself haunted by what he hears, and by the power his wiretaps wield. The genius of this film is its restraint. There are no massive shootouts, no car chases, just the suffocating paranoia of a man who realizes too late that he might be part of something evil. Caul thinks he's disconnected, a technician, but he becomes an accessory to murder, and possibly worse. In the modern world, The Conversation is terrifyingly relevant. Today's governments and corporations collect far more than audio. They analyze faces, locations, thoughts, even emotions through AI. But unlike Caul, modern surveillance states rarely feel guilt. There is no hairy call to spiral into madness. There's only data and the cold machinery that interprets it. Coppola's film predicted the emotional toll of mass surveillance on the watcher as much as the watched. And in an age when digital footprints decide everything from job offers to drone strikes. The line between privacy and power is blurrier than ever. The whisper on the tape, the secret between lovers. It can all be weaponized. Executive action. Long before JFK conspiracy theories were mainstream, executive action dared to dramatize them. Starring Burt Lancaster and scripted by Dalton Trumbo, this docudrama chillingly reconstructs how a cabal of powerful elites could have orchestrated the assassination of President Kennedy, not out of passion, but cold logistical calculation. This film was considered so dangerous that major networks refused to promote it. And no wonder its central premise, that assassinations can be meticulously planned by think tank men in suits, not lone madmen, was taboo. But look around today. From Epstein's death to mysterious suicides of political players, the idea of calculated removals no longer sounds like pure fiction. The story walks you through every step. The choosing of the patsy, the backup shooters, the cleanup, and most disturbingly, the ease with which media narratives can be rewritten in real time. It predicted a world where media isn't just manipulated, it's prescripted. Executive action was buried under criticism, called irresponsible, but in hindsight, it feels clairvoyant. When modern documentaries and whistleblowers echo its themes, we realize the film wasn't irresponsible, it was dangerous because it told the public too much. Winter Kills. Darkly satirical and almost surreal, Winter Kills is one of the most underrated political thrillers of the 70s, and also one of the boldest. It plays like a paranoid fever dream, yet beneath its absurdity lies a disturbingly familiar reality. The film follows Nick Keegan, the half-brother of a recently assassinated president, as he uncovers a sprawling conspiracy behind the killing. The suspects? Not just one, but a web of corporate oligarchs, military officials, oil tycoons, and even his own father. Every new revelation feels like peeling back another layer of rot, exposing how tightly wealth and violence are intertwined. Its message? Democracy may just be a sideshow, while real power is traded like stocks. Today, Winter Kills feels prophetic. It foreshadowed the now common belief that world events are stage-managed by elite interests. From corporate lobbying to billionaires influencing elections via data firms, the film's idea of too many hands in the pot no longer feels extreme. It feels inevitable. The chaos in tone, swinging between comedy, horror, and tragedy, only enhances its realism. Because real conspiracies aren't clean. They're messy, contradictory, and filled with players too powerful to touch. Winter Kills warned us, the truth isn't just hidden, it's entangled in systems designed never to be unraveled. Z. Though technically released at the end of the 60s, Z was the spark that ignited the political thriller trend of the 70s, and it remains one of the most blistering commentaries on state-sponsored violence ever put to screen. Directed by Costa Gavras, the film dramatizes the real-life assassination of Greek politician Grigoris Lambrakis, laying bare how fascism can masquerade as democracy. The story follows an incorruptible magistrate who investigates the death, only to uncover that the military, police, and ruling elite orchestrated the killing and covered it up. What's terrifying is how familiar it feels in the context of today's world. Protesters labeled terrorists, peaceful movements infiltrated by agents, and a justice system that protects the powerful. Z predicted it all. The film ends on a harrowing note. Just when truth seems poised to win, the entire investigation is buried, the judge silenced, and the fascists resume control. It's a gut punch of realism that reflects how truth often dies not with a bang, but with bureaucracy. In today's era of authoritarian creep, surveillance abuses, and crackdowns on dissent, Z serves as a grim reminder that democracies don't collapse overnight. They erode in plain sight behind smiles and press releases. The film is a cry of rage from the past, one that still echoes today. All the President's Men. This isn't just a thriller, it's journalism as a lifeline in a dying democracy. All the President's Men recounts how two reporters, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, unraveled the Watergate scandal and exposed the criminal corruption of President Richard Nixon's administration. And it does so with pulse-pounding tension despite the quiet nature of its heroes. More than a tale of persistence, it's a love letter to truth-seeking in the face of institutional rot. The power of this film lies in its realism. Long silences, stacks of files, hushed phone calls, anonymous sources. This is the gritty battlefield where truth is either uncovered or lost forever. Fast forward to today, and the world is drowning in misinformation, censorship, and politicized media. Whistleblowers risk prison. Investigative journalists are harassed. And many fear that what Nixon attempted in secret, modern governments do openly with less consequence. All the President's Men predicted this shift not through prophecy, but by showing the cost of truth and the fragility of its defenders. Its most chilling aspect is that even when the truth wins, the damage is already done. Public trust never fully returns. In our era of deepfake videos, algorithmic propaganda, and surveillance of journalists, the film feels like a warning. If we stop asking questions, we lose the right to the answers. Capricorn 1. What if the moon landing was faked? That's the conspiracy that Capricorn 1 plays with, only it's not the moon, but Mars. Directed by Peter Hyams, this speculative thriller imagines NASA staging a Mars landing after the real mission suffers technical failure. The astronauts are forced to pretend from a desert soundstage, while a journalist slowly uncovers the ruse. At first glance, it's pure fantasy. But look deeper, and the themes hit disturbingly close to modern concerns. Government manipulation of public perception, media complicity, silencing of dissent through murder. In a world of staged press conferences, AI-generated leaders, and narrative control, Capricorn 1 feels more relevant than ever. The scariest part? Once the lie begins, it can't stop. One secret requires another. When a mission control worker notices data inconsistencies, he's killed. When the astronauts resist, they become liabilities. The cover-up grows until reality itself is rewritten for mass consumption. Today, we've seen government experiments denied for decades, only to be later confirmed. We've seen wars justified by false pretenses. And we've seen whistleblowers turned into fugitives. Capricorn 1 may have been fiction, but its soul was prophetic. It asked, if truth is inconvenient, will they erase it? And in too many ways, the answer has been yes. The Domino Principle. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun, it's a man with nothing left to lose. In The Domino Principle, Gene Hackman plays Roy Tucker, a convict unexpectedly released from prison by a nameless, faceless organization. All he has to do in return is carry out a secret mission he doesn't fully understand, until it's too late. What begins as a story of redemption morphs into a horrifying exploration of psychological control, manipulation, and institutional deception. Tucker becomes a pawn in a much larger game, one involving international assassinations and geopolitical manipulation. The deeper he goes, the less control he has, until even his own freedom becomes another illusion. The film's title hints at Cold War fears of nations falling like dominoes to communism, but its true warning is about people falling to unseen forces. In today's age of algorithmic manipulation, online radicalization, and psychological profiling, the Domino Principle feels uncannily prescient. It predicted how systems can target the vulnerable, rewrite their purpose, and destroy them without ever taking responsibility. The horror here isn't just in the mission. It's in the realization that every decision has been subtly influenced from the start. That sense of helplessness is a modern reality, where our choices are tracked, nudged, and sometimes sold. The Domino Principle whispered a truth we've now started screaming: control isn't always taken. It's designed. The Anderson Tapes. Before the world was wired, the Anderson Tapes saw it coming. Directed by Sidney Lumet, the film stars Sean Connery as a recently released safecracker who plans a high-stakes robbery in a luxury Manhattan apartment building. What he doesn't know is that every step he takes, every conversation, every move, is being recorded by a different surveillance group for different reasons. The genius of this film lies in its structure. As Anderson assembles his team and sets the plan in motion, the audience is made painfully aware that he's never alone. Law enforcement, private investigators, and government agencies are all eavesdropping, yet none of them intervene. Why? Because no one's sharing information. The right hand doesn't know what the left is hearing. This chaotic surveillance state, where everyone's watching but no one acts, is eerily familiar today. We now live in a society where massive databases track everything, but red flags are often lost in the noise. Terrorists, shooters, even scammers go undetected, not due to lack of surveillance, but because of too much of it. The Anderson Tapes predicted a world drowned in its own paranoia, where privacy is extinct and crimes are caught after they're committed. It's not just a heist film. It's a mirror held up to a future where observation doesn't equal justice, just silent control. The Killer Elite. This isn't your average shoot-'em-up. Directed by Sam Peckinpah, The Killer Elite is a brutal, cynical story about CIA-sponsored assassination teams and what happens when loyalty becomes a death sentence. James Caan plays Mike Locken, an elite operative betrayed by his best friend and left crippled. But when he returns, he realizes the betrayal wasn't personal, it was protocol. The story quickly escalates from revenge to revelation, exposing how private security firms and government agencies conspire to eliminate inconvenient political figures under the guise of foreign policy. The CIA in this world doesn't just eliminate enemies, it manages them like assets on a spreadsheet. Peckinpah's signature style, slow-motion violence, emotional disintegration, adds layers of dread to a world where human life is collateral. It predicted a future where military contractors operate above the law, where plausible deniability becomes the default answer to every question, and where patriotism is a cloak for profiteering. Sound familiar? From drone warfare to shadow wars and privatized intelligence, the Killer Elite saw the future. It warned that the scariest enemies aren't radicals or rogues. They're the smiling men writing contracts in back rooms, turning war into a business. And in that business, loyalty is the first casualty. Twilight's last Gleaming. Imagine a high-ranking military general hijacking a nuclear missile silo, not to start a war, but to expose the truth. That's the gripping premise of Twilight's Last Gleaming, a film that combines Cold War terror with biting political critique. Burt Lancaster stars as General Dell, a disillusioned officer who seizes control of a nuclear base and demands that the president reveal a classified document about the real reasons behind the Vietnam War. The U.S. government's response isn't negotiation, it's containment. Lies are preferred over accountability. Truth is seen as more dangerous than warheads. And the most disturbing part? Dell is right. What the film presents is shocking, that wars are not fought for democracy or freedom, but to maintain global influence and economic control. The document in question admits that U.S. leadership continued the war knowing it was unwinnable, all to protect their credibility. This theme, once controversial, now echoes in discussions about Afghanistan, Iraq, and other conflicts. Today, whistleblowers are labeled traitors. Leaks are prosecuted as crimes, and when generals speak truth to power, they're retired early. Twilight's Last Gleaming dared to show what happens when someone in uniform demands truth and how quickly they're silenced. The film is a powder keg of moral conflict and conspiracy, and decades later, its questions remain. What if the real threat isn't from outside, but from the lies we tell ourselves? Rollover. Though technically slipping just into the early 80s, Rollover was conceived and developed during the paranoia-soaked climate of the late 70s, and it plays like a terrifying forecast. Jane Fonda stars as the widow of a financier who uncovers a chilling secret. If Arab investors pull their money from American banks, the entire U.S. economy will collapse. Chris Christopherson plays a banking executive who learns that global finance is more unstable and more manipulated than anyone dares admit. The plot revolves around Project Rollover, a classified financial contingency plan that predicts global panic if petrodollars are ever withdrawn too quickly. What was once fiction now feels alarmingly real. Today, the idea that central banks, foreign investors, or sovereign wealth funds could trigger economic collapse isn't just discussed, it's feared. What Rollover understood long before others is that the economy is not a stable force. It's a delicate illusion, and those who benefit most from it are the ones who've built the biggest lie. It predicted not only the 2008 financial crash, but the rising fear of foreign financial influence in domestic markets. The most haunting message of Rollover? The people who know the system is rigged are the ones most desperate to keep it running, because if it falls, they fall last, and everyone else first. In an age of inflation, banking bailouts, and speculative crashes, this film is no longer a thriller. It's a prophecy written in balance sheets and fear. The Seduction of Joe Tinan. Not all conspiracies come with bullets and assassinations. Some unfold through moral compromise. In The Seduction of Joe Tinan, Alan Alda stars as a rising liberal senator grappling with a critical Supreme Court nomination and the mounting pressure to betray his ideals for political gain. What begins as idealism quietly transforms into corruption cloaked in charm and intellect. This film didn't just predict political scandals, it predicted the slow erosion of conscience that defines so many modern careers in politics. Tinan is not evil. He's articulate, passionate, and seemingly well-intentioned. But ambition whispers, deals are struck in shadows, and soon compromise feels like progress. Today, we witness politicians flip on policy for donors, backtrack under media pressure, and betray causes they once championed. The Seduction of Joe Tinan warned us that the most dangerous conspiracy is the one within, the quiet surrender to power, sold as pragmatism. The film strips away the drama and instead shows the rot beneath the charm. And in doing so, it foreshadowed the political gridlock and performative governance that dominate modern democracies. When elected leaders start thinking like chess players instead of servants of the people, the game changes, and the public always loses. These 14 thrillers weren't just entertainment, they were warnings. Crafted in a decade of distrust, they saw our future with chilling clarity. Today, their visions have come alive. Don't dismiss them as old movies. Watch them again and listen, because what once seemed impossible is now just the evening news.